everyone, and welcome to Trade with Precision free newsletter. It's the 22nd of May 2017, and I'm Tamar Mehr. And what I want to do today is take a look at some US dollar crosses. We've seen some weakness coming into the US dollar. We've seen some strong sell off of the US dollar. And what I've got here is the dollar index. And what I can see here on the dollar index is that we are in a downtrend here on the daily, downtrend here on the weekly, and we are both on this time frame overextended. So we have this overextension. We also touch this monthly pivot and the level of 0.97, and we know that round numbers do offer us nice levels of support and resistance, and especially so on the dollar index. So I'm expecting a bit of a pullback here to release some of that selling pressure and a continuation of this overall trend. Now this correlates quite nicely with the levels that other US dollar crosses are sitting at. So let's take a look at that, and I want to start with euro dollar. And euro dollar has been quite bullish against most of the currencies, and we've seen some really strong moves in the market. And right now what we can spot is that we are very much overextended on the weekly and on the daily as well, and we're coming in into this quite strong level of 1.12. So if we'll zoom out on this weekly chart, we can see that the bigger picture is we're stuck in a range. Top of the range is the 1.15, bottom of the range is the 1.05. We tried to break below it, completely rejected it, and now we're back inside this range. We can also see that 1.12 is quite a strong level in this market. Let's just mark that in. So you can see this is the area, the 1.12, quite a lot of touches at that level. So we've got this overextension, and we've got that strong level of resistance up ahead. While I'm still bullish this market, I do expect a bit of a pullback, really some of that buying pressure, and then a continuation of this trend, and that would correlate quite nicely with a pullback on the dollar index. Another market that sits at a very important level is dollar CAD, and dollar CAD is quite a strong market. So if we take a look here on the monthly, we can see that the overall trend is still up. So the monthly is still in an uptrend. We can see we started here a new uptrend, so we made a higher high and we pulled back, and we pull back into this quite strong level. You can see there's plenty of touches in the past at that level. It's in and around the 1.35 and a half, and we pull back into it. We're slightly below it at the moment, but we can see weekly is in an uptrend, pulling back into the buy zone. Nice convergence here on the indicator. So I'm looking to see how the market will react to this level. Are we going to break above that level? Am I going to get a bullish candle in the buy zone closing above this level? In that case, I'll be looking for a continuation of this longer term uptrend. However, if we find another rejection for that level, then we might see this market continue that sell-off. But currently we're looking quite bullish. We're back into the buy zone and in and around that very strong level. Let's have a look at Aussie dollar. Now Aussie dollar, in the monthly chart, we're pretty much stuck in a range. So the range, at the top of the range, is 0.77, but what we can see is that every time we try to came above this area, try to break it, we failed, and currently we're rolling off. We actually made here a slight lower low. So now we're looking a lot bearish, but we've got this top of the range around the 0.77, and this area where we sit approximately right now around the 0.74. We can see plenty of touches at that level in the past. Looking at the weekly is in a downtrend and pulling back into the sell zone. Let's take a look here on the daily. Now on the daily, we're back into that level. We can see that touches. We're a little bit outside the sell zone. We are sitting a bit above the 20 moving averages over here. So in this case, what I like to do to see if this market is actually starting to turn, I'd like to see the lower time frame changing direction. So if I look here on the 4 hours, we can see that we made just a slightly, in a very weird higher high here. Is basically just a spike, and the momentum to push the market higher, it seems to be running out of steam. If we'll take a look at lower time frame, so let's take a look here on the 1 hour. We already broke this uptrend, so we made a lower low. I'm looking for this lower time frame to change direction, and then I'll look to take this market in the direction of the overall higher time frame trend. The last market that I want to take a look at is pound versus the US. And pound versus the US, we can see that level of 1.3, plenty of touches in the past. We are also in an uptrend and we've got nice convergence here on the indicators. However, we are not as overextended as we were with euro dollar, and we're coming up into this level. So we spent a couple of weeks already around this level trying to break through that level. If we take a look here on the daily, we can see that the daily is still making a higher highs. However, we start to diverge here on the indicators. So the indicators are starting to make lower highs. That could point to momentum running out of this market. We could just keep on consolidating below that 1.3. This doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to see a strong sell-off. However, it just tells us that the momentum to the upside is running out of steam. Now, if we'll take a look here on the monthly, we can see that the monthly is still in a downtrend. So the bigger picture, the overall picture is still to the downside, and we've just had a pullback into the sell zone. We could still pull back some more. We're just at the beginning of that sell zone, but this is a really important level for this market. So we might see some strength coming back into the US market. Have a fantastic trading week, everyone, and I'll speak to you soon.